Bienvenidos, damas y caballeros, otra vez aquí al Brown Perspective. Le habla uno de sus anfitriones, Eduardo. Y aquí estamos con el mero mero Romero Herrero.
What's up? What's up? ¿Cómo estamos?
Changing it up a little bit, no? You gotta, every once in a while, you gotta talk Spanish in the episode, keep it interesting.
When you do the intro like that, it takes me back to the days at Brown when we had the radio show, La Explosión Latina.
La explosión latina. Bienvenidos, damas y caballeros, esta es la explosión latina, le trayendo la mejor música de ayer y de hoy. Perreo del East Coast, cumbia, banda del oeste.
And just to throw it out there, whenever I have a party, I don't worry about a DJ because this guy right here is the MC all the time.
You gotta be through.
Just, just
I'm
have to make.
blessed to have been exposed to lots of music, and it was nerve-wracking at first. I think when you first asked me to play at one of your parties, because I know it's a different crowd, different musical style. Luckily, I have a strong Mexican music selection, but still, I know here people really like their stuff.
I feel like that's stereotyping my taste in music or the taste of my friends in music. Didn't you end up playing Morrissey or some?
So yeah, because I know that's one of the fascinating things about LA musically, that you have a community that that likes the oldies, like the bebop, doo-wop type of music, and then rock and roll. Then you have rancheras, banda, hip hop. So the 80s music, the 80s disco, rap, all those stuff. So I think it's a very complicated musical palette, and you have to, as a DJ, if you want to be somewhat successful, you need to find a way to keep everybody happy, everybody and engage in the party or in the music before you sort of get the dreaded, oh, can you play this? Can you play that? So you try to get ahead of the request by keeping people busy and just enjoying themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, what you were saying there about the people going to the DJ and asking for songs. So is that a big no-no if you're DJing? Is that the one thing that you don't want to happen? People coming to ask you to play something, because does that mean that you're not doing a good job with the song selection?
Yeah, so it's complicated. I think part of it is. So part of it is that you either have somebody, if you've been playing a certain type of music and people are not appreciating, or you have an individual who really likes their music and wants to be in control and wants to either have a song that they really like, or maybe the most popular thing that's playing right now. So I think as a DJ, you kind of take that as feedback, right? So
Yeah.
I think if you have it, you say, "Oh yeah, I have that," and then I can play when it makes sense. Because that's the thing. Like I was mentioning, most DJs kind of have an idea where the music is going. So, and particularly when you try to do a lot of different music, well, the typical Latino party, at least the one that I DJed, you got to do the cumbia, salsa, merengue, bachata, reggaeton, um, kind of dance music, a little dance hall, banda. So again, you can kind of see all of the music genres and how you put one after the other, depending on where you want to kind of take the party and set up your next track. So oftentimes when somebody says, "Okay, can you play this?" and then depending on when you are in the mix, okay, yeah, I'll play when I start playing my Mexican music,
Hmm.
or I'll play when I start playing my reggaeton. So it's a good way to get feedback. But yeah, it can be a little annoying, but ultimately as a DJ, you want your people in the crowd to be happy, and you want
Yeah.
to make people happy and dance. So, and
Well,
sometimes the suggestions are aligned with what you do. I think the biggest problem, and I think maybe that's becoming less of an issue now, is that if you don't have the song, it sucks. But I think nowadays you can, for the most part, download it and play it fairly quickly.
and you're definitely way better, a lot better than a lot of the DJs that I've seen, including my own brother, who le digo su nickname.
DJ skip and scratch.
No, the nickname that, well, I have it. I think a few of us have it. A few that are close to him. Le decimos DJ halftime because my
¿Y
brother's
por
the type
qué?
of DJ
Why
that.
halftime?
What's up?
Why halftime?
because my brother is the type of DJ that he halfway through the party he's already as drunk as everyone else, and then he starts playing his own preferences.
Well, he
So
wants to hear.
after half of the party, it switches to nothing but corridos and norteñas and just hardcore Mexican drinking music. I remember one time, like 10 years ago, we had a party and it was in my backyard, and some girls wanted to listen to rock en español, so they went up to him
Oh yeah.
and they told him, "Hey, can you play some rock en español?" And this is a joke that he took from South Park, so it's not his joke, but it's still really funny because at the time he just told them, "I don't listen to hip hop." And I thought at first that he was just being he was playing with them, that he would play rock en español for them, but he never did.
And everything. It was no, it's my music now. But that's the interesting thing about when you're a DJ. I think part of it is an art, right? The art of DJing, because part of it is keeping the crowd happy, but it's also exposing the crowd to new music and music that is along the lines or maybe something new that they haven't heard and they don't know they like it. Obviously, I think that type of DJing is more like lounge when people are lounging, because if it's a dance party and you're expecting people to be in the dance floor, obviously you got to play music that gets people going. So, but you got to kind of know your audience and where are you in the party? Are you in the mingling phase? Are you in the reception phase? Are you just kind of lounging around so you want good music but nothing that's gonna get you motivated to dance, or are you really in a full-blown fiesta party and playing all the greatest dance hits from across the world?
So you've convinced me now that we have to have a show dedicated specifically to this topic, because I feel like there's a lot more in here that we can talk about.
We should bring DJ Halftime as a special guest.
Yeah. I think this is one of the podcasts that I'll try to keep away from him so he doesn't listen to me calling him that on the podcast. All right. So what else do we have lined up for today?
So, well, today I know that we are probably all tired of talking, hearing about coronavirus, but I tested positive. So I think I wanted to share that experience with you all. And obviously, I'm grateful that my symptoms have been mild, but it has definitely been an interesting journey given the broader context.
I think it is really important to share your experience, because in all this time that we've had the coronavirus, the only podcast or conversation that I've come across where someone was explaining their ordeal and what they went through was on the Joe Rogan podcast. It was I forget the name of the guest, but he got it early on, like February. And so I'm sure if you go and look for personal experiences with coronavirus, you're going to find a lot of personal stories. But for someone that is browsing YouTube, browsing Twitter, browsing the internet, you don't see a lot of that. You don't see a lot of interviews and, again, podcasts specifically devoted to that. So I think there's not enough out there so that people have a good understanding of what these symptoms are. Because even after that interview with on Joe Rogan that I listened to for this one guest that he had, the symptoms were pretty severe, pretty bad. He ended up in the hospital. He stayed there for I don't know how many days. But in your case, like you said, they were a lot more mild. So I think it's good also to talk about those experiences where it's not as severe.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, and I tried to be as careful as I could during, once we started the quarantine, and being careful when I went out, making sure that, we had people over. It was close family with whom we knew that they were healthy, nothing, they hadn't been exposed.
You sure?
And
Sorry, just
what was that?
Quick question. Are you sure we're not going to find some pictures on Instagram or Twitter at some point of Frank the Tank partying it out?
I know, right? It's going to be like, yeah, awesome.
Well, you did make it out to the protest, though, right? So
yeah, so that was what I was going to say. So I think one of the reasons, and again, it's unclear when I got infected with the virus, but one probability is, and I think whether it happened at the Black Lives Matter protest that I went, or maybe it didn't, I think it might have happened because maybe one of the persons that I was with, she had been to some protests, so maybe I got it from her directly from her because that's kind of the thing about the protest, right? So it was a lot of people, for the most part, everybody was wearing their mask. So, and we were outside. So I think because I know that when you're outside, there's a chance that it's not going to get transmitted. But I think the fact that there were so many people and there were some people who were not wearing masks. So, and obviously they're screaming, they're shouting, people sweating, all these things. So it happens when you have thousands of people together.
And you guys
So
were right
chances
next to
are
each
that it could have
other.
been there or it could have been somewhere else.
In the protest, you guys were right next to each other as well, weren't you?
Yes.
Like
So yeah.
in
So
some
you
places,
work.
because sometimes when you're walking, there's people are more scattered, but then you come to
Mhm.
areas where it gets a little bit tighter.
Yeah. So it does. So I think, obviously, and you're passing through a crowd, so you may be bumping somebody here, it's bumping somebody there. So again, I think that it was an interesting part of the reason I didn't want to go was that, to be honest. But then it was okay, like my partner wanted to go. We were like, okay, let's do it. And if she's gonna go, then I'm gonna get it anyway. So I might as well, get it if but while doing something that I believe I wanted to do. And since from that point, I did not develop symptoms until the next weekend when the back of my throat was kind of hurting, and then I noticed that I was feeling like I was getting a flu, right? So I was
Hmm.
getting a cold or a flu, and then I had a little more congestion than usual. And then the following week, I got tested, and then it turned out positive. But since feeling those symptoms and since tested positive, I sort of felt like this weird. I felt tired. I do feel like the back of my throat sometimes it feels better, sometimes it doesn't, and then congestions comes back and forth. So I do feel like I need to let whatever it is my body is fighting, my lungs are fighting out, and that feels good. But yeah, again, lucky that the symptoms are mild, that I've had an opportunity to work from home, to rest at home, because actually there's a relative, one of my wife's relatives who got it, and he too had to go to the hospital, and I think that would have been an even scarier experience to experience that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you were saying that it took 7 days, a full week, for you to start experiencing any of the symptoms.
Yeah, about 5 days, I would say, probably from that Sunday, like around Friday or Saturday, I was kind of feeling a little different.
Yeah, and at first, were you hoping at first that it was just the common cold or the flu? At what point did you realize, or you just start thinking, I may have COVID?
Yeah, and the honest truth is, like, I felt similar symptoms when we first started, and that's after I came back from international travel. So at that point, I was like, I don't know if it's a cold or it could be something else. Let me go. Let me just, take care of myself.
But you
So
didn't
I
get
think
tested that time.
that because I had been exposed with those people, that's why I was like, it could be a regular cold, or it could also be the COVID-19. So let me just get tested to be safe. And also, I wanted to make sure that I wanted to get tested either way because I wanted to know whether or not I needed to stay away from the rest of the family or not.
The first time when you came back from, I think it was Costa Rica, that time you didn't get tested. That time you only got tested
No,
this time around.
yeah, because the symptoms were not severe, and I knew that there was a need to save those tests for people who were essential workers, and B, I wasn't going to expose myself, and C, if I was infected, I wasn't feeling those strong symptoms. So it's interesting because perhaps I had it, perhaps I didn't, but if I had it then, that means that I got it again, which I guess could be concerning too. Or maybe now I have double immunity.
Yeah,
So
I don't know if it works that way, but so what were the symptoms? So you got the symptoms. You said about 5 days after you think there was the initial contact, and then they
Mhm.
lasted for, it sounds like, more than 2 weeks. You're still dealing with them right now.
Yes, I'm still recovering. I think I feel got a little congestion, and that's the weird thing. It kind of ebb and flows. So some days it feels like real. Okay, I'm sick. I need to get some rest. I'm tired, and other days it feels okay. I'm good. I must be getting over this. Let me. continue doing my thing. So I think that's been the interesting um, back and forth. And what I was told was that, you know that you've gotten over it if you go 3 days without experiencing any symptoms.
Hmm.
So I think that I'm waiting for, okay, like feeling like I don't have anything on my throat, I don't have any mucus coming out for 3 days to say, okay, I guess I'm finally over this.
Yeah, and by the way, you're part of that. You're part of that group that right now is being counted as part of the not a second wave, but a resurgence,
Hmm.
because we had plateaued somewhat. Like the first week, second week of the protests took over, and it was also because the lockdown measures had already been in place for several over a month and a half maybe. So we were starting to see the effects of those. So the number of new infections had plateaued. Then we had all the protests, and then the
And also
country.
Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, exactly. The country started opening up somewhat. Then we had Memorial Day weekend, and you had people that were also tired of being at home, tired of being locked
Hmm.
in. And then with the hints, or I forget exactly what the timing was, but the country starting to open up or announcing that it was going to be opening up.
And that's so, yeah, so it could have been Memorial Day weekend, but I think part of it is as people got together as families. I think that that's one of the big places where there's a lot of contagion because people are getting together as large families, and I think it's spreading there. Obviously, people going to restaurants, going to bars, and actually, that week when I was feeling starting to develop symptoms, we went to the OC in Fullerton, and then we went for a hike and then went to get something to eat. And then you saw a bunch of people just going about, going to bars, going to restaurants without masks. And most of these folks were, younger, on the younger side, looking to, have a good time after being at home for so long.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that is also that I noticed as well, that once the country did start opening back up, you started to see the people doing the gatherings, doing the backyard barbecues, and I don't know if this
Bringing the
is.
mariachis over,
Yeah, exactly, bringing the music over, and I don't know if this is
or
just
la
the.
banda too.
I don't know if it's the Hispanic community of other community, or if other communities are like this, or if it's more because of the age group. But a lot of the people that were hanging out together, they weren't wearing masks. Maybe they felt comfortable because it was still small gatherings, like 10 or 15 people, and they thought, okay, well, it's family, so we don't have to wear them. But sure enough, you see the resurgence in cases. We're right now we're still with that increase. I couldn't really find a reason.
I think the Google US graph is pretty good actually. I just pulled it up, and then the Google one comes up.
So this one right
Which
here.
it's not the one I was looking for initially because it has a comparison, but that gives you at least a sense of what has been happening here in the US, and we see that
Yeah.
pretty significant increase.
So you're right here, Eduardo.
Yeah.
Somewhere right here, you're counted because you're part of. Like I was saying earlier, you're part of this second jump.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
Thank you,
you've
bro.
joined the club.
USA. USA.
Well, good to see that it wasn't anything serious and that you didn't have to get hospitalized. That could be scary for anyone.
Yeah, and I think personally that was a great fear, right? Part of it is like, okay, like luckily my symptoms were mild, but that could have changed, or I could have given it to somebody who maybe is not in a good position as me. But I think that was that fear of like, oh my God, is this going to turn worse, and am I going to have to go to the hospital and go on a respirator? I mean, that fear is there, and was there. And then the other side of it is I can also understand how people feel like, oh well, if I get it, it's not going to be as bad. I can just stay home. So I think that's the other part of me that also can now understand that perspective, because it's true. I think I was told like about 80% of people who test positive, they have mild symptoms, but obviously there's that 20%, and I'm sure a smaller number within that, who actually get infected but could potentially have complications and die.
Going back to how you may have come in contact with the coronavirus. Didn't you tell me before that you guys went to eat tacos afterwards also?
Oh, yes. Yes. So, yeah, we went to eat tacos, and there was this place, amazing place here in East LA. And I think it was just right after the governor had given the green light to go out and for restaurants to open up and take out. But it's this amazing place where they have like tacos al carbón, and it's just so tasty. They have like awesome meat. They have costilla, and they have other stuff. But anyway, so there was an attempt to social distance ourselves, people waiting in line. But you saw families coming out, of course, and then there's the people who are preparing the food. Oh, and then there's how can I forget? There's the al pastor, which is delicious meat too.
Mm-hmm.
So anywho, so well, you have somebody that they're takes your order. Somebody's cutting the meat, and you know they're trying to be safe, so they prepare for you. They ask you what ingredients you want. Okay, but then you get your taco, and then you have to pay. And the lady who's taking the um the money, she's not wearing gloves, and
Mm-hmm.
she's pregnant, and it's like, oh my God, like dude, like what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And then but you know she's getting all this money. I didn't see her using sanitizer. And then there's the other place where they have other ingredients where people can pick the limon or the little pickles or whatever they want to add on, and obviously that has things that you pick up with your hands. So in my mind I'm like, oh my God, like there's a pandemic going on, and here we are, myself included, getting these delicious tacos. But obviously, as a culture, the concept of being mindful of germs and how you pass things is not. I mean, it is there, and I don't want to say that we're dirty or anything like that. It's just we're just so used to eating in the streets and having some good food that we sort of are oblivious to how easy it might be able to get something as deadly as the coronavirus in a place like that
If I
from
had
simply
to,
getting a taco.
yeah. If I was a betting man, I'd put my money on that. That's likely where
That
you
was
got it.
where.
Yeah, because even so, what you're describing to me seems insane considering what's going on and all of the measures that restaurants have had to implement to try to stay safe. Like you go to some restaurants and they're super paranoid about it. Um, and then it sounds like in this place they were a little bit more relaxed because I'm surprised that they even had. It sounds like they still had the area where you grab the salsa, the limon, the whatever the salsa
Yep.
you're gonna put on the tacos. And well, how are you? Right, so you said you were getting it with your hands, or did they have?
No, they had serving spoons, but you know, it's not like.
But the serving spoon, did you use it once and throw it, or were you grabbing a serving spoon that other people had
No,
grabbed?
no, it's a metal serving spoon
Right,
that others would get.
exactly right. So that
So I didn't expose myself. My partner did.
yeah.
But you know, she tested negative. I tested positive. So I don't know. Maybe she's asymptomatic and I got it. But that's the thing. Like when you think about, and I think part of it, and you know, I know you grew up in a rancho, and I know growing up in Latin America too. Like I think we're not as germaphobe, and we're more comfortable with dirt and things like that, just because we know that part of how you build your immunity is through, you know, being in contact with your environment. So it's not like we shield ourselves from those things. So I think maybe that's also part of our culture who says, you know what, like, you know, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. You know, lo que no mata engorda, ¿no? Entonces, en este caso, realmente los tacos sí engordan, pero también como que it helps build your immunity system because you're not, you know, you're being exposed to things out there, so you allow your immune system to build up some resistance.
So you
That's
were
one theory.
so you were really out there playing the odds like that, thinking, well, if I get the coronavirus, then so be it. It build my immune system. Because
I mean,
I understand everything you're saying about our culture and how we like to eat tacos and eat tacos out of a corner and all that stuff. But I mean, most of the time, we're not in the middle of a pandemic. It sounds
it's
like you
true.
were, if you were comfortable enough to keep doing that, that
Yeah, and
you're
for me,
playing on the
like that was
dangerous
the thing.
side.
Like I knew that wasn't like for me. That was I was having this episode, and I can kind of even still put myself there. Like we're waiting. It's a long line, so you're waiting time, and all the meantime, like, what am I doing here?
Mm-hmm.
While we're eating tacos, like this family is so close to me. Why are they so close to me? Why is the little girl wearing a mask? Why are they wearing the mask halfway? Like, oh my God, there's more people coming from behind us. Oh my God, now we're trapped. And then like getting the food, getting there, and like and then having those observations because I knew what the risk was,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was, you know what, like I could probably have it already. I'm gonna eat. People are still, these people are the poor. I mean, it was a whole family who was a pretty big size taco stand. So you're also supporting them because they haven't been able to sell food for months now by that time. So, but yeah, so it was this amazing thing of knowing the risk, and I guess yeah, in some respects, embracing it. Like I either get it here or I get it later. But
So one way of looking at it is not that you got a little too comfortable with things and maybe put your guard down. And another way of looking at it is that you sacrifice yourself for to improve the
there
economic
you go.
situation of the small businesses that are
Exactly.
struggling to survive.
It was my altruistic stomach who wanted to make sure that those individuals had support. Yeah, but that's funny because then I can kind of see how there are people there who out there who say, you know what, let me do what I want to do, right? Let me go eat, let me go to the bar, let me do all these things, and if I get sick, I get sick. So be it. So yeah, so I think it's interesting how the mind works, and I mean those were some delicious tacos for sure. But
Yeah,
I obviously it's putting at risk a lot for a very immediate gain of savoring some food and possibly helping a family. But then the other thing was like wondering. I mean, this was probably very popular. Like before pandemic times, you would see a line at the taco place, and I think part of it is because el carbón. You get the smell and you get that humo, so you kind of, as long as you're driving, you're like, hey, I smell tacos, I see tacos. Um, but then you realize like how many tacos does this family need to sell in order to make a living and make this a sustainable business? So that was another my economic part of
I
it
love how
came.
in
I
the
was like,
middle of
hmm,
everything and you being concerned about getting infected, you're still thinking about this family that has to sell tacos.
dude, because when think about it, like I mean, it has to be the return on their investment has to be good enough or just about right to be able to make it. And I think it was probably a whole family because I'm telling you they had different stations. It was well planned. I mean, you had the meats on one side, al pastor, las costillas, the carne, the people who could cut the meat and prepare the the meat, and then you have the señoras making la tortilla, and you have like three señoras making the tortilla or making other things that with the meat, there's different plates. And
Yeah.
for those who like Mexican food, and you can talk about this, like Mexican food is pretty basic. It has different ingredients, and it's a matter of how you combine them. This particular taco stand, they had I guess I forgot what they called it, but basically put like frijoles inside the tortilla as they're making it, so it tastes different, right? Very delicious handmade tortilla, and I know
Hmm.
you appreciate a good handmade tortilla. And then they have the person taking the change, serving the juices, and keeping track of the ingredients that people put on that. So it's a whole operation. So like, how much money do you spend on meat, the charcoal, the ingredients, and how much time, and how much money do you need to make that all that rentable for you?
No, I mean that's true, definitely. And as you're in line, as are you thinking about all this, well, one of the problems with places like this on the corners is that you don't have access to a bathroom where you can wash your hands. But did you guys have hand sanitizer?
I did, and I used it before and after. I did. So yeah, well, we did, but I don't think others did.
Before, well, I know before, but after you finished eating or after you served yourself, but before you started eating?
Be Yeah, before I started eating. So obviously, I worked I was a deli man back in high school.
Yeah.
So like I'm very aware of like sort of food hygiene and best practices and cross contamination and stuff like that. So I try to be as conscious as I can about, okay, if I handle something different, wash my hands, use sanitizer. So, I try to avoid those types of I try to be as careful as I can. So yeah, so after I got the taco, before I started enjoying it, I did spray some sanitizer on my hand before eating it, and then after eating it and all that stuff. I try not to touch my face, all those things. But again, who knows how it happened? It could have happened in that particular taco stand.
Well, they did an experiment right around the time that we had the outbreak of the coronavirus and people were panicking about it. They did this study where they show how easy it is to transmit it from people serving themselves food. And
Oh yeah,
remember
I think I saw that.
they put the like the fluorescent paint on it that you could see, and then they showed at the end they put the light on it, and they showed that it had spread everywhere. And I remember so initially they locked all the restaurants down, but then you could do takeout. So we have the mariscos place around the place where we live, and my wife really likes the tostadas de camarón and the ceviche de
¿Tú
camarón.
querías camarón?
And so the first time that I went there to pick up for her, I just
risking your life.
Well, I went through everything, and after that first experience, that's when I realized that there's no way that you can contain this. There's no way that you can stop the spread, especially after you open up the country again and people start coming in contact with each other. Because first of all, I go in there, I have to open the door, so door handle. So I'm touching something that everyone else touched. So that means that I had to come prepare with something of a napkin or something else to hold it.
Yeah.
And then I get in there.
Or gloves.
And then once it's time to pay, once you're inside, there was reasonable distance between people, but they don't respect it all the time. So you have to be careful about the distance. But then when it came time to pay, I had to give the guy my credit card. And so some of them were wearing gloves, others weren't. They give you the credit card back. And then I have to sign. Because if you pay with cash, it's even worse because they're giving you back cash that somebody else gave them. But you have to sign. So then they give me a pen. And I thought, I'm just using the same pen that everyone else uses. I'm like, there's no way this thing's going to spread to everyone. So
that's messed up because some restaurants I went to, they have a dirty and clean pens.
Yeah.
For people to use.
Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't surprised when the country, when the restaurants, the dining opened up again. My wife really wanted to go to this sushi place that we go to out in La Habra. It's really far from us, but I don't know how it is that we ended up finding out about this place. So we go over there. I think we invited you guys there once, remember?
Yeah, I remember. It was good.
And so we went there because she really wanted to go. And I told her, are you sure? Because things are just opening up. And there seems to be an increase in this stuff again. So I asked her, are you sure? And I'm not asking her because I'm like too concerned about it. Like, I think I'm more realistic to know that I may catch it at some point, but I know that she has like a different reaction to that. But she was like, "Yeah, I really like the sushi, so let's go." So we went, and
let's go, sushi, baby.
The minute that we sat down, some guy behind us in the booth, so the booth behind her, some guy sneezed.
The mother.
2 or 3 times, more than enough. So once you hear somebody sneeze three times, you know
that's a new reality. You hear somebody sneeze or cough, you're like, "This? Are you Corona? You have
Rona?" You should have
Rona?"
seen the look on her face. She was so upset because she's in the medical profession too. So she was like, "What the hell is that person doing? Like, first of all, why are they here? Why are they sneezing inside? You're gonna confront somebody and tell them that they need to go outside and not sneeze, and how is that gonna go? What happens if the person does this or that? Like, what kind of reaction are you anticipating, right? If you're gonna go out there, you have to be ready for the reality, which is not everyone follows the same procedures, and you probably are going to come in contact with it. So I suppose for me, I was already anticipating that, so that's why I wasn't even like that shocked when you had somebody that could. Look, it sounded more like the person had allergies as opposed to that person being sick. But when the person was sneezing, I was like, oh, well, ni modo.
Well, yeah, but they could have allergies, maybe be asymptomatic, and I wonder if then the virus still spreads through their droplets. But
what I'm saying, it's a known risk, right? It's a known. Yeah. So when you go, if the country opens back up and you go out there, it's a known risk that you're taking. And I suppose you could be upset at people if they don't take these precautions as serious as other people, but the truth is that they just don't. You have different levels of people that take different precautions, so that's one of the challenges that we're gonna see. As that's one of the reasons why California has had to order restaurants and movie theaters to shut down again, at least dine-in for
Hmm.
restaurants, because exactly because of that. And even yesterday, we went to another place, and when we were passing by, there was a couple that they were just there, and the guy was really drunk. And as people came in, he was striking up conversations with them. And then he was one of these guys that is very friendly, very talkative. So
Hmm.
he ended up striking a conversation with two other guys that came there, and he offered to buy them drinks. And next thing you know, they're sitting next to each other and they're drinking.
Oh my
And
God.
then yeah. So then these are the type of people that, well, my wife called it patient zero, because she said, there's the guy that's spreading it to everyone. Anyway, just I don't know how people expect to not have uh, increasing infections if that's just the reality of when you go out and you're going to be exposed to it.
True. True.
So thanks for sharing with us, for being comfortable enough to show that you're positive, for coming out of the closet. I'm just kidding.
Thank you.
Is
I
there a,
try.
is
No,
there a
but
stigma
and
associated with it, by the
yeah.
way? No, right?
Huh?
Is there a stigma associated with it? I was alluding to that, to there
Yeah.
being some type of stigma, but there isn't, is there?
Well, I don't know. There may be, there may not. I don't think that's sort of emerged yet because I think in reality you don't know who's had it, and who may. Yeah, I think part of it is like you don't know who's had it, but if you had it, you're not longer contagious, and you sort of, to an extent, have built antibodies. So we'll see. I think we'll see as we start opening up. And I think chances are those people who have tested positive in some ways could take advantage of the restaurants, of the gyms, and things like that, because in some ways they have the immunity to it, but maybe they don't, because I think that's the other question of whether or not people can get it um, twice or more than once, and obviously if the second one is going to be even a worse episode or not. So I guess to be determined. But I haven't told a lot of people. I think I only told close friends about it, and actually I know others who have had it, and it's been a similar experience. But I think part of it is about saying, I had it, I'm good, but also be careful. I mean, and I think that's the message I want to finish this conversation with, is that just be careful, even if you don't think you got it, or if you have it, or you see yourself healthy, just be careful. It's not just about you and your ability to fight it. It's about other people within your family or your circle who may be impacted. So just be safe out there.
Well said. Well said.